Hello and welcome, folks, to another edition of RSF Radio. I'm your host, Joe Monday, and today is March 29th. You're listening to the only show where we talk about what's been going on the front page of our Street Fighter from week to week. It's kind of been a fucking madhouse on our Street Fighter the last couple days. We're probably not going to talk a lot about that at the start of the show. We'll kind of end it on that. And I'm probably not going to bring up any of the threads that were posted about you know what thread we're going to talk about later, because a lot of it is hot garbage strewn about the front page of our Street Fighter, picking apart one of the most meaningless parts of what Mike had to say, which we'll get to later, I promise you that. But before that, let's talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the goods first. I got some goods for you. I have some fine wares. Before we get to that, I just want to say I had a great weekend. I was away from everything. I was at Deep Creek Lake. It was very quiet. There was snow about the ground, so no one was there to, because they like to go up there to take your boats out in the springtime. No one's boats were out. No one's docks were even out. It's very quiet, very peaceful, spending time with my friends, people that I love. Very there's no internet back there, so I couldn't see anything on the internet. And then I come back and everything is broken. Everything has changed, and we are living in a post AMA world right now, as it turns out. Which is probably as a whole a good thing. But immediately a terrible thing for a number of reasons, but that we'll get into. But before we talk about that, that'll be at the end of the show. So you can probably skip ahead to like minute 30 if that's all you want to hear. That's just an estimate. Because it hasn't happened yet. It's in the future. I'm not there yet. I'm not future text here to let you guys know. No soothsayer this week about how long it's going to take to get there. It's probably not long, actually. Probably 20 minutes, because there's not a lot to talk about. There were not a lot of threads to really share. And speaking of which, let's get into the first one, which is Bop. Nope, wrong button. Okay, check this one out. Congratulations to the winner of Tiger Uppercut. This was a regional, CPT regional, and Tokido taking that #1 spot. Right underneath Sako, who performed pretty well with Minot. I think we're going to see some pretty good Minots this year with Infiltration and Sako both utilizing that character to basically the best of her ability. She's difficult, hard to use, fun to use for people who know how to use her. I don't know, I just kind of want to point out the variety of characters in this particular top 8. Got a couple of Kumas. There's a lot of top tiers, as you can see, but also a lot of what people consider mid or bottom tier. See a Zeku there with Big Bird, although, major matchups, not going to pull out a Zeku, or like Nash even. Bonchan's still sticking with Nash. Can you believe it? Balrog's even. The most bottom tier of character, Balrog. Everyone's favorite bottom tier. No. If you're looking for the VODs and didn't catch that, and you want to see some, or I would say listen to some choice commentary, was it Cyclops? Is that how you pronounce that guy's name? Oh boy, he was laying some zingers that, oh man, like super original zingers that you gotta wonder where they came from, or if it was like, I can't imagine it was his first time on a mic, but damn, some of the shit he was pulling out of his ass, it's like, those aren't words that go together. That's okay, alright man, let it rock, and I'm okay with it. It's all good fun. Tournament was good, a lot of cool stuff happened, and check it out. Alright, next up, if you remember a couple weeks ago, Punk said goodbye to Panda Global, and was kind of wondering and guessing, I guess, that he would probably be picked up by Echo Fox, and that turns out to be true. Punk has just joined Team Echo Fox, and he'll go under that name at NCR this weekend, because that's in a couple days. Speaking of which, PCCH is going to NCR, and we've got all that figured out. It's all taken care of, all good and paid for. He's actually fucking... does he leave today? I have a scheduler to look at immediately following this podcast. See if that dude's okay. Because I didn't text him this afternoon. Anyway, regardless. Not important. I'm just thinking out loud. We're getting ready for the next sponsorship, out to Combo Breaker. It looks like Neon V is strongly in the lead, with Tourniquet as a very close second place in terms of voting. In which case, I think we're going to try and send both. Because if we can get one... We can get one there with a plane ticket, get Neon V a room. Tourniquet said that he would be willing to share a room, so perhaps we get some Colleen, perhaps we get some Vega play out at Combo Breaker. This is exciting to me. This is good. I think we can do it. I think we can pull together and do it. It's just a matter of planning on my part, which should come out shortly after the end of NCR. I want to say, like, the Monday following NCR. I want to get on top of this. So we'll set all that up, carry over all the extra money from the NCR drive for Chris CCH. There was actually quite a lot. I don't know the exact. It was something like 250 from shirts plus the 60 some that was left over from the donations, plus the Youth Gym stuff from this last month, which I actually need to check up on that. I think that's also in like the 200s-ish, but I'll need to look I need to do some maths and add all that up before donating. But anyway, that's all that. And also fucking the iTunes reviews. I gotta add all that stuff up as well. Damn, donating a lot here. Regardless, looking forward to that one at NCR. And also, another congratulations to Punk. That shit's awesome. And Team Echo Fox has fucking everybody. Here's another tournament. E-League. Returning to Street Fighter V. A second invitational worth $250,000. This was a fun tournament was it last year already? It's gone that fast. Regardless, they're teaming up with Battlefy, which is the bracket system that we used to use on our weeklies. I don't know. I think they're a good bracket system. It's just they didn't have certain things and wouldn't listen to me whenever I told them what they could improve about their site. So I'm a little salty about that. But with that said, I still prefer a lot of the things that it has over, say, Challenge or even Smash, Smash GG. It's a good bracket service, and the people there actually seem to care. And this is one of those things that's, I don't know, it's fucking rad. They're teaming up with E-League, and hopefully they put on a good show. I have to talk to those contacts in a little bit, see what's good. I don't want an E-League, but regardless, moving on to the next bit, which is a 5-hour-long Dalsim tutorial. It is exactly as it is described. It is 5 hours of a Grandmaster Dalsim, broski, just talking about Dalsim shit. And it's not like just some punk Dalsim that can't learn you how to do a Dalsim. It's a Grandmaster Dalsim. They know what the fuck they're talking about. And they get into basically all the specifics of the matchup. It's like a really good consolidated video. What do you call a video that's 5 hours long? Like, I don't know, kind of like an epic of Dalsim. Goes into matchups, goes into pretty much every button, does go into every button, covers matchup specific stuff, setup specific stuff. It's intense. It is again, I will say, it is exactly as I'm describing it. It is a 5-hour-long Dalsim video tutorial that I would recommend checking out. I mean, it's only got, at the time of this recording, like only a little over 1,000 views. And that's not like fully looked at, that's just like people clicking on it. Only 1,000 people and 69 likes. Yeah. Anyway, I would recommend anyone who cares about this matchup or this character at all to check this out. I think Dalsim's okay in Season 3. It's not great. Manat's a better Dalsim, but that's another conversation. Well, anyway, speaking about other tech stuff, Liang Hub put together a compilation video of characters parrying stuff, which is, I don't know, parrying is always exciting, and not just Ryu. There's some Alex in there and a little bit of Abigail. It's just a fun video. Parrying stuff is cool, and granted, a lot of this stuff is like, specifically with Alex, makes me go, yeah, he's kind of had to mash that one out, didn't he? And you go, yeah, kind of did. The Ryu stuff's probably a little bit more exciting. Abigail stuff is also pretty fun. But it's good. It's a fun video, and it's good to see Landing Hub back at it again with some hot bullshit. Speaking of hot bullshit, here's some Abigail stuff we're going to talk about for the next minute. I only bring this one up because it was something that I knew, but I didn't know exactly. I didn't know if all of this information was consolidated. And I'm going to give a shout out to... I shouldn't have said... I should have practiced this name. Enedradion. I wish it was just Endradion, but then there's an E. There's that one E. That sneaky E. They call me Sneaky E. I'm going to call him Sneaky E. Anyway. He consolidated all this information of... And granted, this one confused me when I read it out loud. The first couple times you read like the title of this post and you go down and like, what the fuck is he trying to tell you? But basically what this is breaking down is that Abigail, whenever he reacts to characters activating their V reversal, right? Reacts to it. Boom. Clip him with that V skill, which is a parry. You would think your mind instantly goes to, oh, like Ryu or Zangief for anyone with like parry. You'll just like hit it and you'll recover in time and you can just punish. But like, but no, that's not exactly true, because if you remember, Abigail's parry works in a different kind of way, in that he gets the parry, right? But then he immediately attacks, which becomes a problem because V reversals are strike invincible. So what does that situation really look like whenever Abigail V skill parries your V reversal? Who recovers first? What happens? Does he catch you? And this is basically a consolidated list of all the characters when they V reversal and you catch them with your V skill, of who gets hit by it. It's a short list. It's only Akuma, Zeku, Gief, and Cammy are the only ones who get hit. There's characters who don't get hit by it, but Abigail is only at a slight disadvantage. So it's like there's really no use for doing it, I guess. If that makes any sense. Like, if it puts you at -2 and blocking your reversal puts you at -2, it's like, was there a point to that? V meter. Okay, no, never mind. There's a point to it. You gain V meter, so I guess, and it's flashy. Might catch your opponent off guard for like, get them thinking about. They might not know if they have the advantage, or they might think that they have the advantage, which they do. It's a 2-frame advantage in most cases. And then things where it's like just straight up punishable, which is actually a much longer list, which actually surprised me, and that's, I don't know, it's like unfortunate. I know I'm saying like something for Abigail is unfortunate after the fucking beating that I took in the pre-tournament stream, and then I got the redemption back, which was fucking thankful about that. But anyway, there's some Abigail stuff, so think about that whenever you are utilizing your V reversal against Abigail, if he can even catch you. Which, honestly, if he can cancel into a command grab off of the normal that he's pressuring you with, like, that's actually the better option. You just catch you, or most V reversals. But anyway, that's just me thinking out loud. Here's some other cool shit that I didn't know. This time from Hatson. I know how to say that name. Again, I will say, as I say every time he comes up on this show, you should follow Hatson if you give a fuck about any kind of fighting game tech. This dude is in it. He's in the numbers. He is plugged into the Matrix. Dude knows what the fuck he's talking about. So, what this is, and I didn't know this, and I don't know if anyone else knew this, because I think that's the case, but I'll read this out loud. When an armored move hits on the same frame as another normal, technically not a trade since the armored attacker is the only one getting the hit, the armored attacker results in +9 extra frame advantage. So it's not just counter hit advantage that we're talking about. It's just an extra frame advantage, an extra 2 in addition to the counter. It's like, 9 minus 2, which is 7. It's like 7 additional frames on top of the 2 counter hit frames that you would normally get. And it's weird. It's a weird situation. The setup that he presents is Urian jabbing into an armored tackle, and the tackle would land the active frame on the exact same frame as Ryu's stand jab. And you look at it and you think, well, what is the significance of this? And it's that, well, if he does catch that jab and he's +9, he can actually link a medium kick chariot tackle into a crouching medium punch, which is kind of bananas. Like, that's kind of nuts. And I don't know if he did all the testing to see like how many more characters are like this and like who else gets this advantage. I think he actually did, 'cause he's pretty fucking thorough. Yeah, it looks like he might have. Yeah, part 2. Well, no, he's using Urian here again. Regardless, I think this is looking into for people who have characters with armored moves. It's very strange. It works funky, I think. Yeah, like Armika's mic drop, but the projectile is not the actual attack. That also gets weird. Yeah, that's funky. It's a weird funky bug, or something that was hard-coded into the game for, I don't know, some reason or another. It's very strange, but interesting. So if you like interesting frame data, I would maybe dig into that if I were you. Okay, next tech stuff. Ibuki. A lot of people thought, and I actually said, that Ibuki doesn't really have that many great mix-ups now in Season 3, specifically without resources. It's like, well, if she doesn't have resources, then you don't really have to worry about all that much. She can't really put you in that many ambiguous situations, which is still partly true. However, what this video shows is situations where Ibuki can get some pretty decent mix-ups, some pretty good left-right guess situations off of most of the beginning part. It's a long video too. It's like a 12-minute, 13-minute video. A lot of the first part deals with dashing not quite under a juggled opponent. Instead of using hard kick command dash, you use the medium kick, stay grounded, and then pop them up again with back medium punch, and then you get to decide which left or right, which side you're going to land on. That's fun to do, I'm sure. There's also some really interesting kunai setups, like where you toss all the kunai. There's some really interesting V-Trigger 2 setups that I've never seen before. So if you're trying to defend against an Ibuki, someone who's stuck with that character in Season 3, or if you play Ibuki, I would recommend checking out this video. It's all good information. It's all very useful information. Alright, next bit. Okay, so if you are a listener of this show, or perhaps you've seen the tournament stream in the past, we talk about the 50/50 every once in a while, which is a streetwear website based out of Toronto. A lot of their stuff is pretty good. I'm in fact wearing the Demon Armageddon shirt right now. But what's going on is that they're running a sale. So I think that the sale code is... Oh, it's just Art Street Fighter. If you type in Art Street Fighter offer code, get 20% off of whatever they have available. So check out the50x50.com. That's right, folks. That's the50x50. Fuck, you know where it is. But shout out to Drewface for doing that. That's all. Like, thank you for offering that to our community. Just been kind of... There hasn't been any money that's ever really exchanged hands between the two of us. It's just kind of like, I don't know, we're both... I don't know. He does a lot of cool stuff for his community, and he sells streetwear, and I think it's cool. So that's just kind of been a good relationship, good working relationship between the two of us, where no money has actually changed hands. Not business at all. Maybe if anyone else out there has runs a business like that, like, hit me up. I'll give you some free advertisement on the weekly tournament. I know he's gotten sales from our Street Fighter in the past, so maybe that'll work for you. Inquiries, inquire inside. I don't want to run business from a podcast. Podcasts are not where business is done. That's elsewhere, maybe on Twitter. People who are listening can't see I'm shaking my head. All right, next little bit. Something that is quickly becoming one of my favorite translation websites. Fugu Taberai did a couple translations here. This one is Daigo's panel on money and games in Japan. He sat down with a lot of pros from Japan, specifically Fuudo, Nemo, Daikoku, and Raya. And I love how, with Raya, because you're like, oh, who's Raya? I've not heard that name before. There's specifically like a pretty long blurb about who this person is that made me laugh, so I'm just gonna like read this one out loud. Raya, a young player that Daigo is teaching. This is what the info card for him said. And this is now in quotations. This is his particular info card. A young Street Fighter V player. He didn't come up by his strength, but in an audition with one of Umehara's projects. He is the one that made Umehara stop wearing Crocs, which is the funniest shit I've ever heard. He's here not to give his opinion as a competitor, but as a member of the community. That said, I've seen him at weeklies, and he's good. I don't know, that's just a really funny thing to include, that he was the one that made Daigo stop wearing Crocs, which is, I don't know, it's funny to me because if you've ever seen or met Daigo in the past, that guy had a penchant for wearing what others might consider bath shoes. I don't know, that's really funny to me that is something that they deemed important to put on this panel of people who talk about the money in Japan, specifically the JSU, the Japanese Esports Union, Japanese ESU, Japanese Esports Union. Do you understand the translation? Am I spelling it out hard enough for you guys? Well, that said, oops. Okay, never mind. It's cool to hear a lot of these players' opinions. They talk about a lot of interesting things that I actually never thought about before. Like, if you don't know what the Jesu is, it's basically gives out like players' cards as you are considered a pro player, and you can play for competitive money. Like, you can play for money, which is not a thing that you could previously do in Japan. And I think at some point, I mean, Nemo even brings up, well, what if someone wants to compete in a tournament but does under the guise of not wanting any of the winnings? Are they allowed to compete? That's not something that the Jesu panel knows yet. So I think these are questions that eventually will need answers. And it's interesting to see all of these players and croc hating motherfuckers talk about where they think the influence of Jesu should reach and its effect on their communities. It's a good read. It's a little bit of a long read, but it's very interesting to see these very top players have their opinions on kind of the legality of them competing in their own country. It's cool stuff. All right, next bit, final bit. Going to another site this time. We're going to talk about our Kappa and Micross and the AMA that has been going around. It's, I don't know, it's kind of no surprise that this was the talk of the town. Mike is one of the, or was one of, and it still is, fuck it, he still is, the most influential community members within the FGC. That was made obvious by this AMA, I believe. So it's no surprise that him saying anything on any topic will make waves. And there's so much to dig into here. Like, it's, oh hey, look at that, it's like 24 minutes by the time we started talking about this. I split the difference. I was almost right. First said 30, then said 20. Just I glanced over at the time, which is, you know, and talking about time of your podcast is always very interesting to hear to the listener. All right, so but anyway, dude dropped a lot of really alarming information that was either already known by a lot of people. Some stuff I think could just be disregarded, but some of it's like is kind of fucking weighty, but also no one is fucking talking about it. Like, I digress. When I say no one is talking about it, I'm not talking about people like who record shows like this or figureheads of the community. Say James talked about this. Justin Wong even commented on this. The Street Fighter V podcast has talked about this. People have talked about this. Because what it seemed like most of all of the people of everyone who wanted to make a flamboyant tweet on Twitter and say some hot shit on our Street Fighter was all tied to Mike saying that he doesn't like Street Fighter V in the ways that he said it. And that's so unfortunate, because that's what people are biting onto, and we're not taking to account, or at least we're not speaking truth to the people actually in power here who are running the show, which is like seriously the scary shit that Mike talked about that made him leave the community altogether, that has been almost entirely absent from people talking about things online. And it's like fucking breaking my heart. It's making me reconsider. It's made me even reconsider just like being a mod of our Street Fighter. I'll just be honest about it, because I'm seeing dissertations on why Street Fighter V is good, and it's like, you missed the fucking. It is so far over your fucking head right now that all this does is to serve to conflate the actual meaningful issues, which we're gonna get into. So I have a list of bullet points that I want to talk about, things that were brought up in this AMA that I think are worth talking about. First and foremost on this list, first bullet, number one with a bullet, is that Mike's okay. He's in a good place. It's like he disappeared from social media and the community for quite some time. It's been just about a year. And that usually is people's first question to him of like, hey man, are you okay? Because so many people have such fond memories of him in Excellent Adventures and him doing stuff for the community, him being on fucking ESPN with Seth Kill, like all of this like good memories of Mike Ross tied to fighting games and all that, and just for him to leave it, they just want to know, hey man, like, you okay? And by his account, he's okay. He's doing okay. Him and Ryan have remained friends. They have still have a good relationship. Friends to the end. Something here, another thing to note is that Mike still wants to keep creating content. This one's interesting to me, and I think this makes sense because he's a creative person. He's a very driven person. I think that's pretty obvious. He's a charismatic person, obviously. And it's interesting that he still wants to continue to make stuff. He didn't say exactly what that stuff will be, which is the bit I'm actually quite curious about. I'm interested to see what he has next, because he also mentioned that it would be quite different from what people expect, and that's not like a surprise. I actually don't. I would almost expect that it would have nothing to do with fighting games, and if it did, it would be something completely unique that we haven't seen yet. It would be something that is like next step. And I'm not just saying that to like be like, well, here's the other thing. Whatever he does, it actually might not be influential within the FGC, because it would probably be devoid of any backers or money, which actually kind of fucking matters, as it turns out, unfortunately. But regardless, next bullet point. And just to kind of close that thought, by the way, I haven't closed that thought, is that he said that he is working on stuff and has ideas for stuff that he would like to continue to create content. And I think that's maybe something to look forward to. It would be hard to find out where or what that is. He kind of closed all social media, so it might be difficult to find if ever it does come out. So hopefully people with the ends can get a hold of that, or whatever it may be. Maybe music related. So here's something. Here's the first bit. Here's the big bomb. Here's the first big bomb. Is that Capcom told Mike to stop. Told him to stop recording, stop doing Capcom Pro Talks, because they didn't see the value in it. And keep in mind that the cost for Capcom at the time to run Capcom Pro Talks was actually $0. Mike himself was providing a lot of the funding for Capcom Pro Talks, like basically out of pocket, doing the show for free, not seeing any money for it. And Capcom saw that and said, well, we're not gaining any money here, so this doesn't have value. Nix the project. To which, if you remember when Capcom Pro Talk stopped, a lot of people were like super sad that it stopped, because it was such a real touchstone within the community of, oh, it's just, we can still be real, we can still just be players, we can still touch upon, you know, like who we think is the best, and talk about it in a very real sense, and have it be basically sanctioned by Capcom as well. But apparently it wasn't, and that, I don't know, that's one of those things that, man, Capcom, you're in kind of an okay position right now. I think you've hired a lot of good people. I think Carolyn and Mike are doing a good job. Andy Wong doing a good job, like running the kind of PR halo around the U.S. Capcom office. That's, sure, you're doing okay, but are we gonna get more orders like this? Or, like, this was the one that's like, it's making me grit my teeth and think, what the fuck's gonna happen here? Because, like, you guys remember Wake Up Wednesdays with Mike? Which it was like the show that covered the CPT. There wasn't one after Final Round. It's Thursday. That should have been yesterday. There's not one right now. Will there be? Will we get more CPT coverage from, like, Capcom official? Maybe not. Do they have any influence on that? Was that a discussion that they even had? Like, this is speculation. I don't know. I haven't talked to them about it. I probably should, and I'll report back next week. But man, how can you have had something that even the highest people in the grassroots community, people with the most influence, would look at that show and say, this is something good for the community, and drop the axe on it? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, don't point a loaded gun at your foot, man. Like, PR safety 101. This is ridiculous. It cost you $0, so you must tell him to stop doing that. You must have seen it as a negative, which I know that Capcom has run the fighting game wing of their company pretty poorly for the last couple of years, half a decade. It's been pretty bad, but man, how you gonna be that bad? All right, next bit, which I actually think okay, next kind of two bits I think would make a little more sense if we talk about it together. I'm gonna continue with the bullet points here. Twitch started out independent, but money changed the company. And this one's interesting because there's actually no detail from Mike here, and I want to call that out. That a lot of people said, like, oh, this is like such a real thing, where it's like, okay, yes, it's true that he said these things, and these things might be true, and I think we can see that that money definitely has an influence on Twitch, and it's very interesting to see somebody who was formerly at Twitch basically blow the whistle on this. Say, like, he doesn't blow the whistle, he gets real close to the whistle. And granted, like, there's probably nothing illegal happening here. It's just how big businesses run. Money gets pushed into a community, pushed into a product, and certain things just cannot happen anymore on that site, or cannot happen with that product because corporate interests. That, I think, makes sense. But no specifics are talked about here. He just says money was introduced into the company, and it became a lot less free thinking. Which, okay, man, there's some specifics there that he said. Like, if you talk to him in person about it, he might say out loud to you, which that would be very interesting to hear. And if I ever see him, I might ask him about that, if he would care to talk about it. These are one of these things where, if, you know, in a face-to-face situation, the last thing on my mind is like, hey, remember, like, all that shit you brought up, like, and you did that AMA so that we could never talk about it again? Let's talk about that right now. By the way, anyone who, like, would go up to him at an event, like, do not it might not be very couth to go up and talk to him about this stuff anymore, specifically because he did it to prevent people from doing just that thing. Regardless, next topic. Mike no longer recognizes the FGC, and I put quotations around that because, man, fucking like, what is that? It's an interesting thing to think about in terms of what he saw the FGC as in 2017 versus what he saw it in, say, 2009. Obviously, there are big differences there. There was a ton of money introduced, the Capcom Pro Tour, all that stuff. Like, it is a different landscape with a lot more money flowing in and out of it. That's undeniable. But at the same time, I want to point out that by saying that it's not that way, I want to bring up, like, it is still that way or at least can be a similar way that you might have seen of being void of money and trying to be competitive on your own terms, and really try and grind it out for, like, see, even me saying that doesn't necessarily make sense, because the drive then would be to make it to main stage on your own accord, by your own finances, to then get to that next step, which is, there was never a next step back then, so that doesn't really make sense. But anyway, yes, the landscape has changed. That's obvious. But what this does is, I think it doesn't lend credence to the people who are still in or making grassroots efforts. Like, it's going to be very difficult in this current climate because of how much actual money is being put into even, like, the smallest event on the Capcom Pro Tour, even the smallest event on the Capcom. Take any of that, right? I don't know what event this is. There's, like, because there's a lot of, like, regionals and stuff like that. I don't know. I haven't looked at any of the finances like that. I can't tell you. But take all that into consideration and then say, well, how does one get into that now? Like, how does one even try to run a local or a large-scale tournament that doesn't have the clout or backing behind them to get the strong, like, why would a strong player ever spend any fucking time traveling to a small event, like, that isn't worth CPT points at this point? Why would they? Why would anyone take the time out of their, like, because it's a fucking busy schedule. We're fucking on a roll, man. NCR is this weekend. You gotta plan up, and then you've already got to be planning for combo breakers. Like, it is happening. Why would you, as a top player, as one of the stronger players, why would you take any time with anything less than what you got to do to, like, actually get paid, or at least try and get paid, or, like, be noticed on a big stream? Like, that's kind of an honest question, because I think it's going to be very difficult for people who are up and coming, or even, you know, moderately sized organizations to be sustainable in the next couple of years. And that hurts. I think that is general hurt to the community, because they're just not going to be supported anymore, even by the people who claim to be, to say supporting your grassroots organizations or support your locals. If you don't, then you don't, right? Like, it's one of those things. Like, if you're putting money into the FGC or putting any effort or anything into it, I don't know. This is very frustrating for me, and I'm sure this was frustrating for Mike to come to as well. But it's going to be very difficult for grassroots organizations to be sustainable in the next decade or so. It's going to be tough. And I think that what he has to say here, and some of what he says, could be very damaging to those grassroots organizations, the actual grassroots organizations within the FGC, who are not tied to any corporate interests. It's going to continue to be very difficult for those people, and, like, it's not going to be their main source of income. And I actually think that is also, like, as an aside note, a very interesting part about the FGC that's still around. That, like, there very much are small communities doing very specific things. Like, I would even go as far as say that Ronaldo Coons, and this isn't me like trying to talk trash on this, but like tonight, it's fucking tonight. Great Fight North is tonight, happening in Ontario, Canada. That's like his first attempt at running like a big tournament, big local. Fucking the 50-50 is supporting it, and that's not like a major corporation. Like, I talked to the owner of the company fucking today. It's very easy to get a hold of. Those kinds of operations, I'm sure. I mean, did you watch it on Thursday? Were you there on Thursday? I don't know. Like, did you even know about it? It's one of those things that, like, it's going to be a lot harder for people of smaller caliber to... Regardless, I find those events very interesting, and I look forward to them in the future. So I'm going to get off this topic because I'm down a fucking rabbit hole right now. I'm down a very sad rabbit hole. I'm a sad rabbit in a sad rabbit hole, and it's making me very upset. He also talked about... Mike also... back to Mike and the AMA. Also talking about the effects of fame and what that did to him. His position on Excellent Adventures and his position at Twitch, and how people saw him as no longer a person but a means to an end, and not being able to discern who was friend and who was using him as a utility. And he does give specifics in this case, which is interesting. And I think you have to take this with a grain of salt. And he actually explains this as a grain of salt. But for example, he said that his birthday in 2016, he got across all social media, got 6,000 happy birthday wishes. But in 2017, when he left the scene, he got 4 total. From, like, between his family, 4. Like, total, period. Shout out to Mark Julia. So, granted, he did tell people to lay off, and he did fucking leave social media, so it would be a lot more difficult for people to get a hold of him. But, point stands that that's pretty staggering that there were that many people who would kind of brazenly just say, like, birthday, and then, like, that affects you. Like, that's a mental hit to your psyche of, like, does any of that stuff matter? Does having thousands of likes on your birthday, thousands of birthday wishes on Twitter matter? The actual answer is like, fucking no, it doesn't. But, or at least, if that's what you value in life, then maybe it does. But I don't recommend that being the place where you find a source of value or self-worth. But that's a whole other conversation. Regardless, he also gets into like some of the really weird shit that happened to him, like people really calling him out for like not giving them shout outs or not being invited onto Excellent Adventures, or like people recording the words that he said unknown to him so that it could be used against him. Like that's pretty fucked up. That's a fucked up thing to then worry about, or at least be on guard at all times. Like if someone did that to you and is like, well, haha, I was recording this private conversation. Haha. Gotcha, bitch. That is... If someone did that to you once, would you trust any conversation after that? Would you trust any private conversation with someone that you weren't 100% sure didn't have your back? And then to that point, would you be sure that of anyone 100% at that point? That's fucking damaging, and like that's terrible. That's terrible that happened to him. Alright, next bit, which I actually find to be maybe the most alarming thing that he said, and this is one of the things where I wish he named fucking names, because I was so taken aback by this. And even though like the way that he said it, like it kind of made me shake my head of like, yeah, I get it, why they would do that. And he even says that he's okay with it, but like, fucking, man, I can't believe people aren't talking about this. So at this point, he left esports because he received pushback on wanting to make it look, in quotes, blacker, a term stolen from Dame Wayans. Granted, he's okay with that direction, but he's not going to change himself to fit in. Like, how are the alarm bells not ringing upon hearing this? Because I think we know what, you know, other direction things are going. The pretty like sterilized things. If you watch the Goichi Sock Fox at Esports Arena, it's like maybe not that way. I take it back. The commentary is actually alright. yeah, yipes, you are, right? But like at the same time, you look at statements like that and you think, like, how much was being held back, or how much were you being I don't want to use the word censored. What's a better word? How much were you being restrained by the company owners or corporate entities into what you had to say and do? Who was promoting you act that way? What kind of VPs or owners of the company were making sure that things stayed the same? Who's trying to meet status quo? Like, who is doing this? And like, because it is, like, we all know that doesn't work, right? Like, clearly what people actually want, and maybe like that's the thing that hurts for me to like maybe think to admit that like maybe financially it doesn't make sense to quote unquote make things blacker, but fuck, man, like I've been thinking about this like since I saw this on Monday. I'm like, how is this not on the forefront of people's minds? How can this not be the open conversation? How can we get so stuck on is Street Fighter V a good game to not think, oh, corporate entities are pushing to make things like pretty milquetoast across the board because that's what they know to work and know to be good? How is that okay? Like, that's not okay. And also, this is one of those things where I kind of wish you would have named names here of who is doing that to make things that way, because that to me is the most damaging thing that was said, probably in this, one of the more alarming things that he said in this AMA. There was a lot said here that we've already talked about that was hurtful to read, painful to swallow. A lot of things here were just like, man, you lived through that. You had to walk? Fuck. I don't know if I'd be able to do it. I'm ready to walk after just listening to it. And I'm still just sitting here like reeling at the implications of a lot of things that he said. I want to go over the last bit, which I think is no surprise, that he thinks Street Fighter V sucks. Great. Like, that is... that was well known at this point. Like, that was no surprise. He even says it's no surprise. The one thing that I will say is the way that he said it, I kind of disagree with. And I know he doesn't fucking care about this at all. But the way that he ended that thought was like handshake and a knife at the same time, because he says it's okay if you like, if you were okay with Street Fighter V, like, you do you, but then he goes on to describe like 18ers, and I'm done describing people. And I mean, I haven't done for fucking year. I've never done it. I choose not to, because it's a dumb way to it's a dumb derogatory word, right? Like, how can you basically try and insult someone by the year they got into the hobby that you like? What other hobby is like that? Did the Dota community start calling people like the year that Dota 2 came out, which I don't fucking know when it came out, but like, was there pushback that way? Like, fucking 012 or when the fuck, when did Dota 2 come out? Now I'm actually in deep thought here. Like, no other community does that. Who does that? Oh, you came in it this year? Wow, you're fresh. You're not like an aged bottle of wine. I want the freshest wine I ever tasted. You're Mad Dog 2020. You're Buckfast, about to get fucked fast. Like, no. That's like, it's just dumb. Like, it's just dumb to be like, oh, welcome to the community. Also, by the way, and knife someone. I get it. I get why you would say something like that. It's like the funny thing to say, but like, and now I'm just talking about, I'm not talking about why, like, him thinking Street Fighter V sucks. It's fine that he thinks that. I tend to agree with him on a lot of reasons why he might think it sucks. Like, that's, in a lot of ways, I think Street Fighter V is bad right now. If you play a pad, why the fuck would you go to a major right now? You can't crouch block. Like, very seriously and honestly, like, that has not been talked about by any Capcom official site, that like pad players can't crouch block, like, or like it's basically random that they can't crouch block. Like, what? Like, how is this okay? Why would you compete for thousands of dollars if you can't crouch block? It's like kind of fucking important. But you know, whatever. There are things about Street Fighter V that I think are fine and good and can be fun. But that's not the issue here. And that, I mean, clearly it's not. I've been talking for about like a half hour now about why this actually matters, and none of it really has to deal with the quality of Street Fighter V. It doesn't help that, you know, it probably had the worst launch of any Street Fighter game, in my opinion. I hated the launch. I've been very vocal about that for years, but regardless, again, we're not talking about that. And the last part that I want to bring up that I actually think is, this is just another sad bit about Mike. Someone asked him the question if he still like hangs out, and his response was, I don't hang out anymore outside of the context of working on projects. Which, man, like reading that, I was like, man, I just got off a weekend of just straight chilling, with just intentionally doing nothing and just hanging out. Had a snowball fight. Like, man, it was just a good time hanging out with my best friends on the lake before, at least before one of them ships off to Japan here in 2 days. I'm gonna miss him for the year or two that he's gonna be gone, but like, it was very cathartic. And I think that there's like, you have to make time in your life for moments like that, of just, it doesn't have to be a grind all the time. There is value in just being with other people, and you might be able to share ideas at that time, but like, it doesn't have to be the goal. You just enjoy someone's company. There's value in that. And that part was a little bit sad to read. Maybe kind of contrasts his first note of that he's okay. So I don't know. I'll let that to be you guys to decide, and then for your opinion not to fucking matter, because no one's opinion on this matters, because it's just Mike's opinion. And you gotta take it for what it's worth, and come to the table with off of everything that he said, of the bombs that he dropped. And so with that, no shit post of the week. Not gonna do that to our Street Fighter. It would be too easy. About the sub. However, we are going to cover the last little bit. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to change this next bit, because I don't know in audio format if this comes across very well or not. But the FGC history, I like the value of bringing up old matches to go and watch. But talking about the instances of the matches or like why they matter, like, that has been a little bit more difficult to at least express, like, oh, like, watch this player play, like the way that they play is very interesting, and then coming to it with, maybe I might try and talk about more about the context, or maybe talk about the implications of a match, or maybe someone doing a clutch combo and explaining how they were a clutch player at the time, or, you know, who this player even was. And with that said, it's going to very briefly touch on this week's FGC history, which is EVO 2010 World Champions, top 32 between Mike Ross and Dr. Chaos. And I specifically bring up this video and this particular link to show off, maybe not the match itself. I mean, the match is fine and it's exciting. It's when top player from the US got into top 8 at EVO, which that in itself very exciting. But the other thing here is just, it's shot from the crowd. You get that feeling of it gives you a good idea, if you weren't in the community in 2010, what things were like. This is a very iconic moment of Mike popping off the sticks and jumping into the crowd, and you're right there with him whenever he does that. So that's, fast forward to the end of the video whenever that happens. It's posted by Pikachu, which is a name I haven't heard in a while, which has made me sad in retrospect. But regardless, so the quality is great. It's fuzzy, but you get the picture if you see or understand what's happening. And no, that's not like YouTube resolution is not like, it's not still buffering. Like, this is, the resolution is the resolution. I'm sorry. You got to deal with this potato quality. It's fine. It's a handheld. Deal with it. In 2010, things are not the way they are now that they were back then. This is, oh fuck, it's closer to a decade than I'd like to admit. Well, regardless, folks, I'll leave you with that, and I'll let you enjoy this match and enjoy the aftermath specifically of this match as Mike made his way into top 8. Surprising I did not share his fourth place finish, because that's, I don't know. I mean, his match with Gamer B was actually quite exciting. You should probably watch that too. But this one, though, shot from the crowd, jumping into the crowd after, and the excitement, you live it. You're there with him. And that's what I'm going to end the show on, is that excitement for the fighting game community and fighting games and people who play them and the communities that surround them. Because it's okay to be excited about fighting games. It's okay to be excited about Street Fighter V. These things, this has not changed. It's just that there are a lot of implications from what he said in the AMA that I think we got to think about going forward. But regardless, folks, that is a show. I'm done talking about fighting games. I actually didn't think I'd talk for an hour on this topic. Fuck. I was kind of expecting a short show. I did not time that out well. Regardless, that's the show. I'm Joe Monday. You can find me at Super Joe Monday on Twitter, or at Reddit SF on Twitter for the R Street Fighter official Twitter account, or you can just find me at Joe_Monday on the sub, or message to the mods if you got something to say. But regardless, that's a show. And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comments section of kind of whatever. It's yeah, I'll find it. It's on YouTube, it's on sub, it's on fucking iTunes or whatever. I'll get it. I'll get at you. If you have any suggestions about how the show should be run, should we not spend 40 minutes talking about one man's AMA who doesn't like the current Street Fighter game? I would like to hear your opinion, I guess. Send it to this black hole of fun that I'm calling my life. Anyway, that's the show, and I will see you guys next week, every Thursday or whereabouts, on another edition of RSF Radio. Until then, folks, take care.